Hi everyone, today we're going to learn about linear equations and we're going to talk about intercepts and slopes. So first of all, what is an intercept? An x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. And at this point, y is 0. The y-intercept of a graph is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and at this point, x equals 0. So I'm going to show you a quick example of what an x and y intercept is. So here we have a graph, and let's say it asks you to find the x and y intercepts of the graph. So to find the x-intercept, this is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis, and to find the x-intercept, you're going to find where this line crosses the x-axis. And that's right here, and the point is 4, 0. And let's say it asks you to find the y-intercept. You're going to find where the graph crosses the y-axis, which is here. 0, 2. And as you can see, what I said before about x-intercept, y equals 0, so y equals 0 right there, and y-intercept, x equals 0. That is always true. X equals 0 for all y-intercepts and y equals 0 for all x-intercepts. And this is because the x-intercept will always be somewhere on the x-axis, whether it be here, here, or wherever on the x-axis. And so y is always 0 because the point does not have a value up or a value down. And it always stays right on the x-axis. And similarly, on the y-axis, if the point is here, it has no x value because it's right in the middle. Center. This is why y equals 0 and x equals 0. So what if you have a question where they give you an equation, they ask you to find the x and y intercept. So this is a sample problem. Let's say they give you this equation and they say find the x and y intercept. So to find the x-intercept, you're going to say y equals 0 because we just showed that on the graph before. So you're just going to plug in y equals 0 to this equation. And in the end you get x equals 3. So the x-intercept is 3. And if it asks you for the point, just write 3, 0, and that will be your answer. So that's the x-intercept. Now let's say they ask you to find the y-intercept. And the y-intercept, x equals 0. So we're going to plug this into the equation. So now we know that the y-intercept is 6. So the point will be 0, 6. So 3, 0 is the x-intercept and 0, 6 is the y-intercept. So finding the intercepts are useful when you want to graph the equation, and we'll see that more in future videos. Okay. So now we're going to cover slope. So the slope of a graph is how steep the line is. So if you have a positive slope, that means the graph is moving up. And if you have a negative slope, it means the line goes down. So slope is often denoted as m, which equals to rise over run, which is also equal to delta y over delta x, which means the change in y over the change in x, which can be also written as y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And what these 1s and 2s mean is that if you have 2 points, x1 and y1 and x2 and y2, you can just plug those numbers in to find a slope. And so there are 3 different ways to find the slope of a graph. Number 1, from 2 points. If the question gives you 2 different points, and you can use this equation right here to find the slope. Another way is from the graph itself. You can look at a graph and find the slope. Now the third way is from an equation. If the question gives you an equation and asks you for a slope, you can use one of the formulas above again. Okay, so first we'll start with how to find the slope from 2 different points. Let's say a question gives you the points 0, -2 and 1, 1. and it asks you to find the slope. Then you're going to use this, sorry, I meant, it's supposed to be m, because m is a slope. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That's the formula to find a slope. And so it doesn't matter which point you make, number 1 and number 2, so we can just choose. Let's say we make this one the x1, y1 point, and then let's say we make this point x sub 2, y sub 2 point. Then what we do is we just plug these numbers into this equation. So y sub 2 is 1 minus y sub 1, oh, oops. That was supposed to be 1. Sorry. Anyways, so that's supposed to be negative 2. And x sub 2 is 1 minus 0, because x sub 1 is 0. So solve for this, and you get 3 over 1. So now you know the slope is 3. And as I said before, you can also make this one the second point and this one the first point, and you'd still get the same number. So let's try that. Let's switch these. Let's pretend that this one was the 2, and this one was the 1. Let's see if we still get the same answer. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1, negative 2 minus 1, over x sub 2, which is 0, minus x sub 1, which is 1. We get negative 3 over negative 1, which is still 3. So either way, you get the same slope of 3. So that would be the answer to that question. So the second way you could find the slope is by looking at a graph. So we'll have a sample problem. This is a graph right here. So how do you find the slope from a graph? First, you can choose 2 points, and choose points that kind of easy to see. So it's like, hold on. Let's say it's this point and this point, because it's like 1, 1 right here and 0, negative 2 right here. Like, you can choose this point, or if you want, but it's going to be harder because you're going to get fractions. So just choose easy points if there are any easy points. So to find the slope, you have to find change in y over the change in x. And the change in y is how far up or how far down it goes. And up is always positive and down is always negative. And then for the change in x, and this is the x-axis, it's either going to move right or left. And right is always positive and left is always negative. So in this graph, how far does it move up? It moves 1 from this point to this point, 2, 3. So it moves 3 units up. So we got change in y equals positive 3. Positive because it's moving up. And so for the change in x, we're going to see how far right or left it moves. And this one moves 1 unit to the right. So it's going to be change in x is going to be positive 1. So now we know the slope is change in y, which is positive 3 over positive 1. So it's 3. And we will try another example. Oh, sorry. Okay, so another example. It's a bit harder. So let's choose 2 points. And here there's like a lot of points to choose from. You could choose this point, you could choose this point, you could also choose this point, but I'm just going to use these points. So first we're going to find the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y. You can start with this point or this point, and we'll just do both of them. So let's start with this point first. How far up or down does it go? Well, it goes 1 unit up. So change in y is positive 1. And from here it goes 1, 2. So change in x is negative 2. Now the slope is 1 over negative 2. So it's just negative 1/2. Now, we started with this point, but let's see if we get the same answer when we start with this point. So from this point, we have to move 1 unit down. Then we move 2 units to the right. So the change in y over the change in x is negative 1 over positive 2, which is once again negative 1/2. So it doesn't matter which point you start with. You just have to find the change in y over the change in x to get the slope. And it would be the same slope if you started from this point or this point. Doesn't matter. You just have to find 2 points on the graph. So the third way to find the slope is from an equation. The basic form of an equation, there are a lot of basic forms, but the easiest one to find the slope would be y equals mx plus b, which is the slope-intercept form, and m is always a slope. So let's say you get this equation, y equals 3x minus 2, and it asks you to find the slope. Well, you just compare it to this first, y equals mx plus b, and you find m, and m is right here, so the slope is 3. But let's say they give you, let's say they give you a bit of a harder version, and they give you the standard form instead of just this y equals mx plus b form right away. So let's say they give you 3x minus y equals 2. And then you want to find the slope from here. Well, then you're just going to convert the standard form to this slope-intercept form. So first you can add y to both sides of the equation, and you can get 3x equals y plus 2. Then you're going to subtract 2 to get y equals 3x minus 2, which is basically what we got right here. It's the same thing. It's just written backwards. But once again, you see that the slope is 3. So let's try another example. Let's say they give you a bit of a harder question. They give you x plus 2y equals 2. And this is a standard form, and they ask you for the slope. You're just going to convert that to the slope-intercept form again, but it might be a bit harder. So let's subtract x first. 2y equals negative x plus 2. Then you're going to divide the whole equation by 2. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 1. So now you know that the slope, remember y equals mx plus b, so the m right here is negative 2. No, I mean negative 1/2. So that would be the slope.